Hey guys, welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. This one is going to be a nice little discussion about our key forward Max King and what we can do next year to get the absolute best out of him, but also maintain the form that we saw in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season without him. You know, it's a very topical discussion amongst the fan base. You know, some people saying we should trade him. Some people saying maybe we should put him down back and replace Josh Battle so he can learn his craft there. I don't think that's going to happen. Either of them, obviously. I think he will sign a long-term deal at some point, but obviously the priority right now is to get his body right and to, firstly get through a pre-season unscathed and get his body 100% for round one next year, which is why the club have done what they've done and kind of put him on ice for a while, which I think is a great approach. What do we need to do to ensure that everything I think he can be, he will become and grow with the rest of the team? I think we forget that he started the season really well, particularly his first 3 games. So just to remind you, round 1, 2 goals for. 2 goals for is not great, but he still had a lot of shots. 17 disposals. Round 2, 15 disposals, 3 goals straight. And round 4, 14 disposals, 1 goal, 1. So the first 3 weeks, he's getting over 13 possessions, which is very good for a key forward. That's great. He's working up the ground. He's running back towards goal, and that makes him a very dangerous prospect. So just hold that point, because I know we're going to go there at some point. But then it goes 4 possessions, 7, 8, 10. It goes back up to 14 against Melbourne, which is good. 3 straight again. So there's a correlation between him getting a lot of possessions, working more, and inevitably kicking more goals. So I think that's where we want to see Max kind of excel in the next season. Then he drops back to 8, 10, 8, 10 against the Power. 2 behinds. Couple of games there with no goals. Obviously the Power game, that was his last game for the season in round 16, and we put him on ice after that and just said, get your body right. From that point on, we had an unpredictable forward line. We had Sharman, we had Caminiti, Membry finding form, Owen starting to pick up, and the mids starting to lower their eyes a bit more because they didn't have the main target. They didn't have the shortcut, the cheat code. That's what I like to label him as, because as a mid, if I was playing at St Kilda in those first 15 weeks when he was there, of course I'm not going to be lowering the eyes and going for I'm not going to be going for Sharman on the lead 45-50 out when there's a King at the top of the goal scorer with 5 men on him. You're still going to back King, So I'm just trying to get in the mindset of why we've played the way we've played and then what the improvement's been. And I've looked at every stat throughout the entire season with King and without King. Marks inside 50, I would say there was a marginal uplift in marks inside 50. Inside 50 efficiency hardly went up. There were some games where we had 40%. There was the odd game where we had 50, 60%. But generally, our average was around 49%, sort of going inside 50, which was the same with King and without King. Our amount of inside 50s increased. And there were some games where, yes, marks inside 50 were through the roof. The Geelong game, I think we took 20. But just as a side note, the Brisbane game, where we got pantsed by 85 points, we had 15 marks inside 50, which was well above our average, and Brisbane only had 12. We had 15. So by that token, you'd think, okay, we're getting a lot of scoreboard pressure there. We kicked 5 goals for the day. So there's not always a direct correlation between marks inside 50 and scoreboard and goals and winning. Although, in the back end of the season, we had more variety. That's what I'll say. But there were plenty of games this season we lost, and we had a lot of marks inside 50. When King was playing really well in those early games, I looked at his Telstra tracker, and I wanted to see where he was getting the ball. And I'll be honest, for the first 3 or 4 weeks, when he was playing well and kicking goals, and we had no problems with him, and we won 2 of those 3 games that he played well in. At least 50% of his possessions were up the ground. They weren't just inside 50. And then when I looked at some of his poor games, where he's getting 7 possessions, 8 possessions and no goals or 1 goal, He's getting basically 85% of his possessions inside 50, not moving up the ground at all. So just on that alone, a lot of people are making the argument, and I kind of agree with this. Centre half forward King. That's where he should play next season. That's a good argument to push up the ground. It makes him, sort of not have that pressure on him to just sit inside 50 and go, hey, put it on my head, and there's 3 defenders on him and it's impossible for him to have any sort of impact. Majority of the games where he's blown the game open and he's played really well, if you watch the replays, he's taking marks up on the wing and he's working back. There's so many games where I've seen where he takes a mark on the wing, chips it, they chip it around for a little bit, gives him time to push back towards goal, and then we go long. And when he's on the move like that, it's very hard for anyone to stop him. When he's stagnant, when he's just static, he's standing still inside 50, and it's the obvious option, and the mids aren't going to work, the other forwards know it's going to him, so they're not even leading, then it's just so easy to defend on the opposition point of view. So, to be honest, without him, I think it's an absolute blessing for the team to learn how to find other options. But the key thing is, those options were still there. They were still there when he was playing. They were still there. Our marks inside 50 were the same. Our goals went up, but our marks inside 50 were the same. Our inside 50 per game went up after him. But that, to me, is a translation of playing a more aggressive, exciting, flamboyant style of football, which we were not playing in the first part of the season. When we play quick, when we play exciting football like that, and we defend well, we're going to get multiple inside 50s. We're going to get a lot. And it's just about maximizing them. So you get 65 inside 50s like we did in a number of games in the back half of the season, but you're going in at 45%. That 45% is still a great turnover compared to going inside 50 45 to 50 times at 45%. Do the math. You know you're going to score more goals with or without Max King. So to me, I think Caminiti should be full forward. This is the ideal scenario. If we can just play Ari or we get someone to replace Josh Battle and we don't have to push a forward back. My sort of starting sort of forward line without Membry, just assuming he goes to North or wherever he goes, it would be Caminiti out of the square. Sharman takes Membry's role because Membry's departed. We'll just assume Sharman takes that sort of third tall roaming, sort of lead forward. And King is centre half forward and he pushes up the ground and works back. And that's where I think, the full backs like a Harris Andrews, Jacob Wiedering, Sam Taylor, they love when King's out of the square because they don't even have to move. They just sit on him. They're tagging him out of the game. They're doing their job. It's comfortable. And then the other blokes push up the ground. If King's the one working up the ground, Sam Taylor doesn't want to go up onto the wing because then the back line's exposed. And then that means Sharman and Caminiti can get to work. And then it takes the pressure off King. He moves back, potentially can create a mismatch because players don't know. Sam Taylor might say, okay, someone else take King while he goes up to the wing. And then I'm going to just sit back here and take Caminiti and say the second or third tall has to go with King up the ground. He works back, creates a mismatch. It just makes us that much more unpredictable, that much more dangerous, and it adds variety to our inside 50 entries. But it's not just take King out and we're better. It's so much more than that. The other forwards have to lift. Sharman, Caminiti, Membry, they all knew, Mitch Owens to an extent, they all knew that without a main target, their work rate had to go up 25%. I was pretty bullish about that when King went down. I was kind of excited to see that forward line work, and I was not surprised at all with the way we went about it because there's times even with King where we lower the eyes and he's not the main guy, kicks one goal and there's a few blokes around him that perform and we play well. We play well when we don't think he's the shortcut. So for me, moving forward, he can't be full forward sitting out of the square and just inside 50 all day long. It's not going to work. And when we drafted him, one of his big traits was his sort of athleticism around the ground. He's a very nice field kick too. Go back to, I think it might have, round 4 against the Tigers when we came from behind and won by 7 points. I think it's just before 3/4 time, I think. It must have been just before three-quarter time. He marks the ball about 75 out, centre square, turns, Jack Higgins is bolting towards goal, and is the most beautifully weighted pass to Jack Higgins over the top. Jack Higgins runs into an open goal, and three-quarter time happens pretty much right on that siren, I believe, when he kicks the goal. That kick was phenomenal from Max King, and I'm telling you now, Membry marks that, Caminiti marks that, Owens marks that. That kick is not hitting Jack Higgins as well as it did off King's boot. So that's why I think up the ground works, because he's not a bad field kick. He can create mismatches. It's not going to be as contested for him, because when you're on the wing, you do have to lead up to the football as opposed to just sitting there and, hey, hoping it's on my head. So there's, some people just like to whinge and just say, just trade him. We'll get value for him. Trade him for Petrarca. It's like, no, the tools take longer. I'm looking at, sort of by year his career and how he's gone, and the benchmarking on whether it's elite, above average, average or below average. The only time, so 2021, he was above average for rating points, AFL rating points, and goals, 1.9 goals per game. That was 2021. 2022, 2.4 goals per game he was averaging, which was above average. 2023, it went up to 2.5, which was rated elite by the AFL, and that was only a year ago. 2.5. He missed a lot of football, but when he came in, he kicked a lot of goals. In 2024, 1.6 goals per game, which was average. Disposals 10, average. Marks 4.2, average. Kicks 7, average. And then handballs, 3.4. The funny thing is, across his career, disposals, it was pretty much equal career high disposals this season. Marks 4.2, his highest ever in his career per game was 5.2. So not down a lot there. Tackles 0.7. He's never been a high pressure forward, although you'd like to see that. Kicks 7, down slightly. 7.8 was his career high. The only thing that took a big drop this season was goals. 1.6 this season, 2.5 in 2023. So he was almost down a goal per game, which is massive, especially in a team like ours where we're averaging 11 goals per game. You think about it, 2023, we're averaging 11 or 12 goals per game, and nearly 3 of them were Max King. So not only are we hugely reliant on Max King, but we do need to be looking for other options, and they need to be, we need to be sharing the workload. It's not just about King improving, which obviously I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm saying there's so much work to be done for him, but it's a collective, because our approach going inside 50 with him there needs to be exactly like it is when he's not there. So that's just a mental shift for our mids going inside 50. If they see King goal square one-on-one and maybe slightly out of position versus Sharman leading right up at the football, maybe a bit further out, tighter angle, you go the Sharman kick. That's the thing. That's what the good teams do. You back your players any position on the ground they are. If he goes there, you back him. If there's no option and there's a player switching at 60 out, that's where you go. And you keep moving it. Make King move. Because when he's playing his best football, he's on the move. The games against Richmond, when he's torn them apart, a lot of those marks are on the move. He's coming in from the side. That's when he's at his best. He's not one-on-one pushing a bloke out, although you'd like to think if he can put on some more size, that strength will come into it. But and this is even from his draft year, you knew it watching. There's a pack, King comes in out of frame and just comes in across, dives in and takes the mark at the front of the pack while everyone's competing. He doesn't have that luxury now because everyone knows that's where the ball's going. It's going to him. He doesn't have anywhere to run and jump because it's on his head. And he is the main target in our forward line. So he's got to learn to find other ways to kick goals. I'll be honest, when people suggested him going up the ground, I was like, no, that's a dumb idea. He's our best target. You don't see any of the other good forwards going up the ground. And you know what? I was wrong. Jesse Hogan, Coleman medalist, 69 goals this season. So many of the games I've watched, he's up the ground. He's getting 15, 20 possessions and kicking 5. And he's working up, working back, working up, working back. This isn't the era for sit-at-home forwards in the goal square. You just don't see it anymore. Danaher works up the ground. Mackay and Kerno, they rotate up the ground deep. So I think before we, kind of crack it and say, yeah, let's just put him down back, or let's trade him, which I think is just not going to happen. And why should it? He's 23. Let's try and tinker with a few things first. I think that's the best way to get, the maximum return out of such a talent that is Max King. So let me know in the comments, Saners, what you think. Obviously, this season was a very disappointing one for his standards. Didn't get enough football. He hasn't had a proper full preseason in, ever, really? So this could well be it. A lot of pressure for him. I still have a high expectations for him. I'm not changing those at all because I think that lets him off. Maintain those standards. We all expect so much from him. And I think, at some point, hopefully things will click. But the proof is there. When he's up the ground, when he's on the move, we play better, we win games, he kicks more goals, he gets more possessions. When he's sitting out of the square and we're just bombing it in, we have low inside 50 efficiency, we don't kick goals because he's easy to man up on, and his personal performance is below average. So all that puts into line that he needs to work on his tank, he needs to get up the ground. We need Caminiti and Sharman to be those more stay-at-home forwards. That's my thoughts, Saners. It's just a general video I just wanted to share. It's been on my mind. The form has been great, but people forget we do have Max King, and he will play. He'll be in the team round 1 next season. But in what capacity? Out of the square, centre half forward. What's the best way? I think centre half forward. I think Caminiti stay at home. He's the pack crasher. I think King on the move is the way to go. So let me know in the comments, Saners. Thank you very much for watching. I'll do more videos on individual players over the off season, but this was the main one for me. I wanted to get out. And yeah, please be respectful in the comments. Let's be constructive. How do we get the best out of him? Put it in the comments. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. And as always, go you mighty Saners.